Welcome to my American History Notes, where I read from the conclusions I've drawn from studying American history. Conclusions you might not agree with, you might even be offended by, but conclusions I hope you'll come to conclusions, your own conclusions by studying American history. So we're in the era of the first George Bush president, and I'm going to begin. It's the title of my class when I had this as a class was "The Cold War Becomes a War Against Islamic Fascism," and I'm going to do a special topics class on how the Cold War, the drug war, and Islamic and fundamentalism um, all coincide, and we'll be doing that later as an opinion thing. So, George Herbert Walker Bush became the first sitting vice president to successfully run for president since Martin Van Buren in 1838. He was the son of a privileged family, and his father had been Prescott Bush, U.S. Senator from Connecticut. George Bush served in the U.S. Navy in World War II, receiving the Distinguished Flying Cross. He graduated from Yale in 1948 until his election as a U.S. Congressman in 1966, had worked on an independent oil company he had founded until 1964. He was a U.S. ambassador to the United States under Nixon, chairman of the Republican National Committee under Nixon, a director of the Central Intelligence Agency under Ford, and Reagan's vice president. The nation watched apprehensively as the 1988 election approached, looking for a recession resulting from the 1987 October stock market crash. In addition, the aftermath of the Iran-Contra scandal, or his involvement with Panamanian strongman Manuel Noriega, could possibly damage Vice President Bush. Fortunately for Bush, his Democratic opponent was another weak candidate like Mondale, Michael Dukakis, governor of Massachusetts. He chose the governor of Arkansas, William Clinton, to give his nominating speech at the Democratic convention in 1988, and it was a real disaster. Clinton went on long, the delegates were noisy and disrespectful. Clinton seemed nervous, and his first appearance before a national audience turned out not to be very auspicious. Also contending against Bush were popular politician Bob Dole, whose wife Elizabeth served in Reagan's cabinet, and TV preacher and author Pat Robertson, who was willing to step down from the preacher's God called duty of winning souls from hell to pursue a worldly dream of secular power. George H.W. Bush won the nomination and the presidency in a landslide as the people wanted to continue what they perceived to be the successful programs of Reagan, who was called the Great Communicator, although not with the same mandate given to him as the Democrats made ground in cementing their majorities in both houses of Congress. President Bush was an activist in foreign policy, naming his close personal friend James Baker III as his Secretary of State. He had daily meetings of the National Security Council and wrote hundreds of handwritten notes to leaders and kept frequent telephone contact with leaders around the world. And we're going to talk about events in the world and some things that happened. That I lived. I remember. This is really neat getting into I mean, in the era that you actually were, you lived. You can remember the news stories, the TV shows, news items, and stuff like that. So it just kind of brings it more home. So I hope you'll follow me next time, and you'll study American history and come to your own conclusions. Thank you.